It's a question that really sticks in your mind, doesn't it? Year after year, the same country tops the list.
Mm-hmm.
For 8 years running now, 2018, right through the latest 2025 report, Finland has been declared the happiest country in the world.
8 years. It's quite something.
It really is. You might be wondering, as well as so many of us do, what exactly is going on there? What's the secret sauce? What can they teach the rest of us?
It's a truly remarkable pattern. Very consistent. And when one nation consistently leads on something as important as happiness, well, it really makes you want to look closer,
Yeah, what are they doing differently?
What contributes to this sustained well-being?
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're really on a quest. We want to understand why Finland consistently gets that #1 spot in the World Happiness Report.
Especially compared to others.
Right, especially when you look at countries like, say, the USA, which haven't even cracked the top 10 since the index started back in 2011.
Never in the top 10. Wow.
So we're digging deep into what some people are calling Finland's infrastructure of happiness.
I like that phrase, infrastructure of happiness.
Yeah. What is it about their society, their culture, that seems to cultivate such profound contentment?
And crucially,
And maybe more importantly for everyone listening, what can we learn from it? Could there be some genuinely life-changing perspectives here for our own well-being?
precisely. And to really unpack this, we've gathered quite a range of sources.
Okay.
We'll be looking at articles from This Fizzleland, which gives you insights right from inside the country.
Good direct perspective.
Yeah, and there's a fascinating piece from Outside Online where an American actually digs into happiness, but specifically in Finnish Lapland.
I know, interesting angle.
We've got some detailed text excerpts, a specific chapter from the World Happiness Report itself that looks at this whole Nordic exceptionalism idea.
Right. Why are those countries always up there?
Exactly. Why do they rank so high consistently? And we even have a CNBC Make It video transcript featuring happiness researchers, but also expats living in Finland.
So a good mix of voices then. Locals, outsiders, researchers.
It's a really rich mix, yeah. You get the Finnish perspective, people who've chosen to live there, and the academics studying the global trends.
Great. And just to set expectations, this isn't going to be just a surface level look at quirky Finnish habits or something.
Now, we want to go deeper.
We're really aiming to uncover the core factors that these sources point to as driving those consistently high happiness rankings.
The fundamentals.
Yeah, we'll explore some maybe surprising details and really try to get a handle on what makes a tangible difference in how Finns experience their lives.
And what that could mean for us.
Exactly. What could that mean for how you and I think about our own path to maybe a more fulfilling life?
Okay.
Okay, so this consistent top ranking, 8 years straight. And like you said, the other Nordic countries, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Norway, they're always right there too, in the top 7 usually.
Always clustered near the top.
What does that tell us about the region as a whole? Is it something in the water or, something more structural?
Well, what's fascinating is how they measure it, right? The World Happiness Report's main ranking, the country rankings by life evaluations.
How does that actually work?
It's basically asking people a pretty straightforward question, something like, please imagine a ladder with steps numbered from 0 at the bottom to 10 at the top. The top represents the best possible life for you, and the bottom represents the worst possible life for you. On which step of the ladder would you say you personally feel you stand at this time?
Okay, so a direct self-assessment, 0 to 10.
Exactly, as a direct measure of their overall life satisfaction, their contentment, from their own viewpoint, and they average that over the last 3 years of polling.
Gotcha. So it smooths out any temporary blips.
Right. So when you see Finland and its neighbors consistently scoring so high on these life evaluations year after year, it really points to something deeply embedded, a widespread sense of well-being across their populations.
Right. Okay. So it's not about just, feeling cheerful today, but a more fundamental sense of how your life is generally going.
Precisely. A pervasive sense of contentment.
And that consistent #1 for Finland really flags something significant is happening there. Now, the contrast with the U.S. is, well, it's pretty stark, isn't it?
It really is.
Never in the top 10 since 2011, like we said. And even dipping down to 19th in 2019. What are some of the underlying things that might explain that huge gap in reported life satisfaction?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, some of our sources, they highlight a concerning trend in the United States.
Which is?
Things like rising rates of depression, problems with drug addiction, and suicide rates. especially when you compare them to the significantly lower rates you see in Finland.
That's sobering.
It suggests that the high life evaluations in Finland aren't just, people saying they feel good. They might actually reflect a society that's perhaps more effectively tackling some of the really fundamental challenges that impact well-being on a huge scale.
Which brings us back to that idea, you like the infrastructure of happiness.
Yes.
This phrase pops up quite a bit, especially in this Finland article. It suggests that Finland has, maybe deliberately, maybe just through how things evolved, developed this combination of culture and really strong social institutions.
That work together.
Yeah, that genuinely support the well-being of individuals, but also the community as a whole. It makes you think, doesn't it? As you listen to this, what parts of your environment, your society, do you think impact your happiness the most?
And what's fascinating here is how well this concept fits with the research that the World Happiness Report highlights.
Okay.
Life satisfaction, it turns out, isn't just about your individual circumstances, your job or your personal life alone.
Right, it's broader.
It strongly correlates with having a well-functioning society around you, one that reliably provides those crucial things like universal health care, comprehensive social security, access to the labor market.
The basics, really, but reliable basics.
Exactly. These aren't just abstract policy points. They form a solid foundation. People can build their lives on them with a greater sense of security, predictability. And that, ultimately, seems to lead to higher life satisfaction.
And a key part, maybe the central pillar of this whole infrastructure, seems to be trust.
Ah, yes. Trust comes up again and again.
It really runs through all our sources. Trust not just, in your friends and family, but trust in public institutions, trust in the government, even trust in strangers on the street.
Which is maybe the hardest one to achieve.
How does that pervasive sense of trust actually impact daily life in Finland, do you think? In ways that might feel different for, say, someone listening in the U.S. or the U.K.?
Absolutely central. This Finland article even brings up the wallet indicator.
The wallet indicator, what's that?
It's basically experiments where wallets are intentionally dropped in public places to see how many get returned. And Finland consistently scores incredibly high. The article notes that generally all the Nordic countries are seen as among the very best places in the world to lose your wallet and actually expect to get it back.
Wow. That's a really powerful and concrete example, isn't it?
It speaks volumes. When you could reasonably expect a stranger to do the right thing, to return your lost stuff, that says so much about the underlying social fabric.
Yeah, it's like a societal lubricant, maybe. Reduces friction.
That's a good way to put it. It frees up mental energy. You're not constantly on guard.
And the experts in that CNBC video, they touch on this too, right? Emphasizing how this widespread trust creates a sense of safety, allows people to feel more relaxed in their daily lives.
Yeah, when you're not always worried about being ripped off or whether the system will fail you, you can actually focus on, living your life.
And one of the experts, Elizabeth Lottie from Sisu Lab, she connects that feeling of safety directly to enabling co-creation and innovation.
Interesting link. Because you feel secure enough to try things.
Maybe. Less fear of failure, perhaps. It makes you wonder, how does trust, or maybe the lack of it, impact your own community or society more broadly?
And it raises the question, how do you build that kind of deep trust? And how do you maintain it?
Right. Where does it come from?
Well, our sources point to a few interconnected things. Good governance is definitely a crucial piece.
Meaning?
Finland consistently ranks really high for having a transparent, accountable political system, one that's genuinely committed to the rule of law.
So people believe this system is fair and works.
Pretty much. When citizens generally believe their leaders are acting with integrity, acting in the public's best interest, it naturally fosters more trust in those institutions.
Okay, so good governance builds trust, and that good governance then supports a wider societal framework.
Exactly. A framework that kind of cleverly blends stability with really strong safety nets.
Safety nets like unemployment benefits, healthcare.
All of that. The idea is that individuals feel more empowered to, take calculated risks, pursue goals, make different life choices.
Without constant fear.
Right, without that constant fear of complete disaster if things go wrong. Because there's a reliable system there to provide support if you stumble. How much do safety nets like that influence risk-taking or innovation in a society, do you think?
It must make a huge difference. Less fear, more freedom to try.
And that sense of security seems to nurture a really strong sense of shared responsibility.
How so?
This Finland article points out that over 90% of Finns consider paying taxes an important civic duty.
Over 90%, that's incredibly high.
It's a remarkably high figure, yeah. It indicates this collective understanding that everyone has a part to play, everyone contributes to the overall well-being of the community.
So they see the connection between taxes and the benefits they receive?
It seems so. That shared responsibility is pretty fundamental to keeping those social support systems going, the ones that contribute to happiness.
And it's not just about paying taxes, is it? There's also this emphasis on, like, active participation, open dialogue between people and the government.
Yes, absolutely. That cultivates a sense of inclusion, empowerment. It gives people a real voice, contributes to a transparent democracy where freedom of expression is really valued.
And when people feel heard, when they believe their opinions actually matter, how might that impact their overall satisfaction with their lives, with their society?
Well, connecting back to happiness, feeling like you're a real part of something bigger than just yourself.
Yeah.
That your voice is heard, that you have a stake in how things are run. That's got to be a pretty significant contributor to well-being, hasn't it?
Definitely. It fosters that sense of belonging, of purpose.
Which goes beyond just individual worries.
Okay, another huge theme that comes up is Finland's commitment to equality and social justice.
Very important.
This includes a really strong emphasis on gender equality, strong protections for minorities, creating a genuinely inclusive environment where people feel valued.
Regardless of background.
Right. And linked to that, relatively low levels of income inequality and social stratification, it just contributes to a more equitable society where opportunities feel more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, less of a gap between the top and bottom.
How do you think those levels of equality in a society impact the overall happiness, the well-being of everyone in it?
Well, what's particularly interesting here is how the World Happiness Report tackles that common idea that, oh, the Nordic countries are happy just because they're small and homogenous.
Right, you hear that a lot.
But the report pushes back on that. They acknowledge some studies find links between diversity and maybe reduce trust in some places, but they emphasize that other things like ethnic residential segregation or big economic gaps between different ethnic groups seem to matter more than just diversity itself.
Okay, so it's more about how diversity is managed.
Yeah.
Or the underlying inequality.
Exactly. And crucially, they note that in countries with high-quality institutions like the Nordic nations, ethnic diversity might not actually hurt social trust at all. Yeah. In fact, lots of the happiest countries have large immigrant populations. And immigrants in Nordic countries tend to report happiness levels pretty similar to the native-born population.
Wow. Okay, so that really challenges that homogeneity myth quite directly.
It does. It highlights how important those societal structures, those inclusive policies really are.
Fascinating. Okay, and then there's the undeniable role of education and information. Finland's education system is world famous, isn't it?
It really is. Consistently ranked among the best.
And it's characterized by equal access to high-quality learning, including, importantly, tuition-free undergraduate college.
Free college, that's huge.
It is. What impact do you think that kind of widespread access to quality education has on a nation's happiness, on people's life chances?
Well, the emphasis goes beyond just access. The source materials, the pasted text bits, and the CNBC transcript, they really stress the high caliber of the teachers.
How so?
They're typically drawn from the top 10% of graduates, and they all need master's degrees. It's a highly respected profession.
Unlike some other places, maybe.
And there's a strong proactive focus on catching and helping students who might be struggling right from the start, making sure nobody gets left behind.
So a real investment in everyone's potential.
Absolutely. This huge investment in human capital, promoting equal opportunity from day one. That's got to be fundamental to building a thriving and ultimately happier society.
And this commitment to education seems linked to strong press freedom too, right? High levels of media literacy.
Yes, that comes up as well. Empowering citizens to think critically about information, fostering an informed, engaged public.
You can really start to see how all these pieces fit together, can't you? Trust, good governance, equality, education.
They're all interconnected. They reinforce each other.
Creating this supportive environment.
Yeah, exactly. And another vital thread in this whole tapestry of Finnish happiness is their deep connection with nature.
Ah, yes. The forests, the lakes.
It's not just, a nice backdrop. It's deeply ingrained in daily life, in their sense of well-being.
There was that statistic, wasn't there, about proximity?
Yeah, that most Finns are never more than a 10-minute walk from a park or a forest. 10 minutes.
That's incredible accessibility. It really highlights how important nature is in their lives. How does your own connection with nature, or maybe lack of it, affect your sense of calm?
It's a powerful reminder, definitely. And the sources really emphasize how this easy access, this regular immersion in nature, promotes calmness, contentment, reduces stress.
Someone mentioned a study about creativity.
Yes, Emma Seppele, quoted in one of the articles, she highlighted a study showing a remarkable 50% jump in creativity test scores after just 4 days in nature, disconnected from electronics.
50%. Just 4 days.
And she underlines that Finns, on average, spend a significant chunk of their time actively engaging with the natural world.
So it's not just about escaping the daily grind.
No, it seems more fundamental. Cultivating a different rhythm, a sense of being grounded, finding tranquility that just sort of permeates life.
And does that tie into another thing that's often mentioned, their appreciation for simplicity?
I think it does, yeah. A focus on functionality, on the beauty of small, simple moments, not needing constant extravagance. How might embracing a bit more simplicity in your own life affect your contentment levels?
That's a good question. Less striving, maybe. And at the heart of this simplicity, or perhaps alongside it, is the sauna.
Ah, the sauna. You can't talk about Finland without mentioning the sauna.
It's described everywhere as the central, almost sacred space for unwinding, disconnecting from all the demands, and reconnecting with yourself, with others.
In a really unhurried, simple way.
And the sheer number of them is just mind-boggling, isn't it? Millions of saunas for a population of just over 5 million people.
It's astounding. It really speaks volumes about how deeply embedded it is in their culture.
It really does underscore its cultural roots. The CNBC video had that funny story.
Oh yeah, about not fighting in the sauna.
Right. Lest you anger the sauna elf.
The sauna elf. And it also mentioned, kind of humorously, that even serious political compromises have apparently been hammered out in saunas.
No way. Really?
Apparently. It just shows how integrated it is. It's a space for relaxation, but also, maybe surprisingly, for connection and even problem solving. Do you have any rituals like that in your own life that allow for that kind of unwinding and reconnection?
Probably need more of them. But beyond these really distinct cultural things like sauna and nature, Finnish society seems very deliberately set up to prioritize a balanced life.
Yes, putting personal well-being right up there alongside professional commitments.
And you see that reflected really clearly in their work policies, their social structures.
Especially the support for working parents. That really stands out, particularly when you compare it to, say, the U.S.
How so?
Things like universal access to affordable municipal daycare. And the fees are scaled based on your income.
Making it accessible for everyone.
Right. Plus, the option for parents to stay home with kids until they're 3 without losing their job. And flexible working hours being pretty common.
Those are huge supports. They must make a massive difference to family stress levels.
Absolutely. Enabling a much healthier integration of work and family life. How do supports like that, or maybe the lack of them, impact the working parents you know?
Oh, dramatically. The sources really highlight that stark contrast between Finland and the U.S., where parents often struggle with just crippling childcare costs and little or no paid family leave.
It's a totally different world.
And then there's that iconic Finnish baby box.
Ah, yes, the baby box.
A free box given to all new mothers, packed with 63 essential things for the baby. And it even doubles as the baby's first bed.
It's such a wonderful, tangible symbol of societal support right from day one.
It really is. And the parental leave policies.
Incredibly generous.
Yeah.
10 months of paid leave with specific time for both mothers and fathers.
Both parents, that's key.
And then the option to stay home even longer, up to 3 years, with your job held for you, although the payment is smaller then.
Still, 3 years of job security while you raise your young child.
It speaks volumes about the value they place on family, on those crucial early years. It's not just financial support, it's a cultural message.
Okay, then there's healthcare, another big one.
Universal, free healthcare in Finland.
And they manage it at a significantly lower cost as a percentage of their GDP compared to the U.S., right?
Almost half the cost percentage, yeah. The U.S. spends nearly 18% of GDP on healthcare, Finland around 9%.
While getting better outcomes, like lower infant mortality.
Much lower. Finland's rate is about 1.7 deaths per 1,000 births. The U.S. rate is around 5.8.
Wow, that really makes you question the priorities and efficiency of different systems, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And, people often talk about the high taxes in Nordic countries.
Yeah, that's the common counter-argument, isn't it? Sure, they have nice things, but look at their taxes.
But our sources suggest that Finns generally see where their taxes go. They perceive a direct, tangible benefit.
In the free healthcare, the free education, the affordable childcare.
Exactly. High-quality public services that are readily available to everyone. Plus, their tax system is progressive.
Meaning wealthier people pay a higher percentage.
Right. Which likely helps foster that sense of fairness, that collective responsibility for everyone's well-being.
This focus on balance also shows up in paid time off, right?
Oh, massively. It's legally mandated and remarkably generous.
How much are we talking?
New hires get at least 24 days of paid vacation per year, plus about 15 paid public holidays on top of that.
24 days minimum for new hires. That's, again, a huge contrast to the U.S., where many jobs offer 0 paid vacation, or maybe just a week or 2 after you've been there for years.
It's a completely different mindset about rest and recharging. The CNBC video even shared that cultural bit from Denmark.
What was that?
That if you're consistently working late, it might not be seen as dedication, but more like you can't manage your workload effectively.
Interesting perspective shift. How does having that kind of guaranteed time off impact your own ability to recharge and keep things balanced? Or the lack of it?
It makes all the difference. And think about the cherished Finnish tradition of the summer cottage, the moki.
Right, spending weeks in summer out in nature.
Often in very simple cabins, maybe without electricity or running water.
Yeah.
It powerfully underlines that cultural value of disconnecting, reconnecting with family, with nature, slowing down.
It's a deliberate choice, prioritizing time and experience over just stuff and constant productivity. So it really seems like this whole web of support, healthcare, education, parental leave, work-life balance, it fosters a greater sense of freedom, maybe, autonomy for Finns to shape their own lives.
That's a really interesting point the CNBC video makes. It contrasts a common U.S. feeling of needing protection from the government with a more typical Danish or Nordic view that the government is actually there to protect and support you.
That's a profound difference in perspective, isn't it? What are your own gut feelings about the government's role in happiness?
It's a fundamental difference. And this underlying security, this mutual trust, it just permeates daily life there. We mentioned the wallets.
Right, and leaving bags in cafes.
Even leaving babies in strollers outside shops while parents pop in.
I still find that one hard to believe, but it comes up.
It highlights a level of societal trust that probably leads to lower stress, less inequality, less crime. Just a more harmonious environment overall.
Interestingly, on the topic of generosity, Finland doesn't always top the charts for, like, monetary donations to charity.
Ooh, that seems counterintuitive.
But the World Happiness Report suggests maybe the comprehensive social support systems already in place just reduce the need for so much private charity.
Ah, I see. So the collective system handles more of it.
Perhaps. It's a different way of looking at generosity and social cohesion. Maybe it's more about collective responsibility baked into the system rather than relying solely on individual charitable acts.
That makes sense. And we absolutely have to mention sisu.
Right. The Finnish grit.
That deeply ingrained quality of resilience, determination, perseverance. But it's not just about toughness. Elizabeth Lottie described it beautifully as an aspiration for quality, an integrity-fueled striving toward best possible outcomes, even when things are tough.
Wow. Integrity-fueled striving. I like that.
It seems like a core part of their identity and probably helps them navigate life's difficulties, contributing to that overall well-being.
Okay, now, it feels important we should also address some common myths that often pop up when talking about Nordic happiness.
Good idea. Let's clear the air on those.
First off, the weather. People always say, how can they be happy? It's so dark and cold.
Right. But the World Happiness Report actually points out that, well, people adapt surprisingly well to average weather. It doesn't seem to be a major factor dragging down life satisfaction.
So our internal state, our societal supports matter more than the sunshine hours.
Apparently so. We adapt.
Okay, myth number 2. The suicide rates. You still hear people claim they're really high in Nordic countries.
Yeah, that's a persistent one, but it's outdated. Well, historically, maybe decades ago, their rates were higher.
They've come down.
They've declined sharply. They're now close to the European average. And importantly, the World Happiness Report notes that the same factors that predict higher life satisfaction also tend to predict lower suicide rates.
Ah, so they move together, suggesting a common root in overall well-being.
Exactly. Good societal conditions support both.
Okay, and the last big myth, smallness and homogeneity. They're only happy because they're small and everyone's the same.
Right. But research just doesn't back that up as the main driver. There's no clear link found between country size and happiness.
And the homogeneity part.
Well, Nordic countries are actually becoming increasingly diverse. And as we mentioned earlier, the well-being advantage extends to their immigrant populations too.
Reinforcing the idea that it's about the quality of institutions and inclusive policies, not just about everyone being the same.
Precisely. It's about the system, not just the demographics.
So when we look at this Nordic secret sauce, it's not really one single ingredient, is it?
No, not at all. It seems to be more like a powerful, self-reinforcing, virtuous cycle.
Explain that. A virtuous cycle.
High-quality, well-funded institutions provide great social benefits, security for everyone. That fosters high levels of trust in each other, trust in the institutions.
Okay.
And that pervasive trust, in turn, supports the public's willingness to maintain and fund that welfare model through taxes and participation.
So it feeds back into itself. Good services build trust, trust supports the services.
Exactly, a positive feedback loop that just keeps enhancing societal well-being.
Which is the opposite of a vicious cycle you might see elsewhere, right? Low trust, corruption, poor services, making positive change really hard.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
And it's worth pointing out, it's not just the Nordics.
Right. Other consistently happy countries.
Countries like Switzerland, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, they often share many of these same core elements.
Strong institutions, high trust, freedom, focus on well-being.
Yeah. It suggests there might be a more universal recipe for national happiness, even if the cultural expression is different in each place.
So the specific history and culture vary, but the underlying principles might be quite similar.
It really looks that way. There seem to be some fundamental principles for building a society where people consistently report high life satisfaction.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it feels clear that Finland's top happiness ranking isn't about everyone walking around with huge grins 24/7.
No, it's not about constant exuberance.
It seems much more rooted in this deep, profound sense of satisfaction, contentment, arising from living in a society that's intentionally built on trust.
Equality, social justice,
Comprehensive social support that gives security and opportunity.
a real sense of freedom and autonomy.
And that vital, easily accessible connection to nature.
Exactly. It's the whole package working together.
And while, just copying and pasting the Finnish model onto a completely different country might not work or even be possible.
Given different histories and cultures.
Right. But really understanding these underlying principles, the importance of trust in your community and institutions, ensuring access to quality education, healthcare, prioritizing work-life balance, connecting to something bigger.
Understanding those things can be incredibly insightful, can't it? Maybe even, as you said at the start, life-changing and definitely motivational.
Yeah, motivational for us as individuals, but also maybe for thinking about our societies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really pushes you to reflect on your own, quote, infrastructure of happiness.
Doesn't it? So as you, listening, think about all these elements we've talked through trust in your community, access to education and healthcare, work-life balance, connection to nature or purpose, what's maybe one specific aspect of your own infrastructure of happiness that you feel you could potentially strengthen?
Drawing some inspiration from the Finnish example.
Yeah, it really makes you think how these big societal factors are just so tightly woven together with our individual well-being, our potential for a really fulfilling life.
And we've really only scratched the surface here today.
Totally. Those sources we looked at, they go even deeper into all these complex and ultimately really human questions about what makes a good life.